Hey, what's up? Today I'll talk a little bit about 8 Doors. This is the last numbered game I'll cover. Next week we'll start with the first A-letter game. Before this review I never played this game and I knew nothing about it. I spent around 5 hours playing it and I would guesstimate that I'm around 2/3 of the way to reaching the end, which I probably won't do, but I did get a good look at the game. The How Long to Beat website says it will take around 9 hours to play the main story. This game is a Metroidvania 2D platformer based on the Korean interpretation of the Afterlife by the also Korean indie studio Ruthless Studio. I don't know much about Korean mythology, so I can't really confirm or deny how accurately it's presented, but I think if you're a big fan of Korean folklore, it would be cool to see the stories you know in a game. Kinda like God of War does it, I guess. You play a girl called Arum that travels to the afterlife to find her mysteriously deceased father. During your journey through the afterlife, you not only fight crazed spirits and the like, but you will also involuntarily be part of an otherworldly power struggle. So you arrive at the afterlife after drowning yourself, where this recurring character gives you your first weapon, and you learn the basics of moving around. After a couple minutes, you find your frog buddy Croak, who will accompany you for the rest of the game, and off you go to chase after your dead father. The frog buddy will learn different abilities that will allow you to get to new areas or to backtrack after learning the associated skill for that. You can switch between frog mode and girl mode, and if you spend your skill points in a certain way, you can even use frog mode for primary fighting, which I thought was a cool addition. I think the premise is interesting. Kind of reminded me of 2010's Dante's Inferno a little bit, but the execution was not my favorite. They basically send you from hub to chase after your father. Oh, you're looking for a lost soul? Sorry, didn't pass through here, but maybe try X location down the road. You get there and they tell you, oh, looking for your dead father, huh? I got no idea, but maybe ask this guy in the next city over. I understand they must somehow entice you to go and explore the map, but this feels pretty uninspired and boring. As you follow the story and defeat bosses and look for more information on your dad, you find out that some of the world has been corrupted by someone. So aside from the finding your dad plot, you have the guy secretly trying to take over the Afterlife world plot, which you learn through cutscenes here and there. Story-wise it makes sense, but I just wasn't a huge fan of how they did everything. The dialogues were kinda meh and there's many grammatical errors that make it a little bit silly, which I can look past that since it's neither a huge studio nor a native English speaking one, so I would just say the story's kinda there and a means to an end to explore the game. Movement is pretty good. Moving around when you begin is not the smoothest, but I guess that's normal for any Metroidvania game where you unlock more and more abilities as the game progresses. Eventually, moving around feels really good, especially after getting the air dash and wall climbing ability, which allow you to backtrack. On that note, there is some backtracking here and there, but usually when you get a new movement ability, there's only one spot where you could possibly go to progress the story. So finding out where to go next is pretty straightforward. Also, they literally mark it on your map with a big arrow. I do have to say though, there's many secret areas and bosses that you could miss if you just follow the markers on your map. The fights are decently challenging, but not too hard. The platforming is most of the time not very difficult. Each boss fight has 2 phases. After hitting what felt like 50% of their HP bar, they go into goblin mode and get new and stronger moves. I took notes on how many tries the first couple boss fights took me, and these are the results. I killed the first boss on my 2nd try, 2nd boss on my 3rd try, 3rd boss on my 10th try, so there was a big spike in difficulty on that one, boss 4 on my 2nd try, and the 5th boss on my 13th try, which was also pretty difficult again. So every once in a while on the big bosses the difficulty spikes, but there's definitely some filler bosses as well. Generally I would say this game gets more and more difficult the closer we get to the end though. The art style is mid and even good at certain times. Yes, there were some really cool designs like the soul collector guy you meet in the first hub or the dragon you encounter when you use the portals. But at the same time, you have a lot of really wacky looking characters that just remind me of dated Flash games. For example, the projectile shooting early game enemy or some of the bosses even. I realize they're not a AAA studio, but they've shown that they can produce cool looking characters, so I just wished for a little more effort on some of the designs they show. Some of the environments like the key areas look cool, but a lot of the sections you pass through in the game are not very special. I only really noticed this after a while, but I found the mood of the game pretty depressing, which you could say is fitting for a game based around the afterlife. The only color they decided to use in the whole game is red, everything else is in grayscale, which gives it this hopeless, muted feeling. It's something unusual for sure. So, what did I like about the game? The movement feels crispy, good and fluid. Some of the character designs were cool, like the soul guy and the dragon. Some of the boss fights were cool and challenging. There's even a boss fight where you get chased and you have to platform for a while, which I thought was pretty cool. There's an interesting premise, especially for Korean mythology enjoyers. What did I not like about the game? There's a bunch of grammar mistakes, as well as weird dialogue in general. I found the character design to be awkward at times. I didn't really like the 3 colors only approach that much, but I can understand why they did it. And I think the Call of Duty-esque waypoint system takes away the need to explore on your own, which I would argue is a big part of any Metroidvania game. So, with this game coming in at $16, do I recommend it? It depends. I would say if you enjoy Metroidvanias and or Korean mythology a lot, and you can look past the indie developer jank, and you already played a lot of the big games in this genre, you might have some fun with this. I can't really recommend this to anyone else in good conscience though, especially with a €16 price tag when Hollow Knight is in the shop for $14. If you enjoyed this week's review, be sure to subscribe. New review coming next week. Good luck.